If I were to ever design a curriculum for young performing artists, it would include a semester-long course on collaboration. Now, I don't know about you, but for as wonderful as my training was, both undergraduate and graduate training, no one really talked about collaboration. Oh, indirectly, yes, through coachings with pianists, but the theory and day-to-day practice of collaboration, nope, that was just not taught back in my day. The first time I actually received specific instruction about collaboration was through New Dramatist Composer Librettist Workshop in 2015. Now, if you're not familiar with New Dramatists, I encourage you to check them out. I was just at their space the other week, and they are just a community of the nicest, most supportive folks of new works. Anyway, the Composer Librettist Workshop actually taught creative and performing artists how to collaborate with each other. I can't tell you how refreshing that was and how much I learned over the 2-week workshop. What did I learn exactly? Hi, my name is David Sisco. My pronouns are he, him, and you are incredibly welcome to my podcast, Wholehearted Voice Pedagogy. This podcast is dedicated to the art and practice of teaching singers. It is an extension of my book of the same title, which was published by Routledge Press just about a year ago, this past July. It's available on Amazon, Routledge.com, and anywhere you get your books. Of course, today we're going to be discussing collaboration. My special guest is 2-time Grammy nominee Laura Strickling, who just happens to be on my forthcoming album, Infrastructure, the Songs of David Sisco, which will be released by the Metier label next week on June 12th. Yes, a little bit of product placement here. But Laura is a brilliant human being with lots of great experiences and thoughts on how to teach collaboration. And I'm going to share a little bit of what I've learned before we speak to her. As my colleague Laura Josepher and I outline in our book, Performing in Contemporary Musicals, when venturing off into collaboration, it's best to start with several different questions. Why are we working together? First off, what are we hoping to achieve? When will we know we've met our goal? Why are we the right people to tackle this challenge? And do we have a common vocabulary? What are our work habits like? And what are our communication styles like? How do we like to communicate? We also explore the importance of clearly defining roles and responsibilities for the project. We each have certain gifts and other things that we may not be so great at. Can we have honest conversations about what each of us wants to do, what we don't want to do, and what we'll compromise on? Also, can we change rules midstream? And how do we talk about these kinds of changes? Finally, how do we manage conflict when it arises? And let me tell you, it will almost always arise. Can we remain curious about our frustrations and attempt to see things from the other's perspective? Can we own our own feelings and not conflate issues? And here's the thing in my personal experience. It's rare to have these kinds of conversations early on in a collaboration because it's vulnerable, which is precisely why we all have to get good at having these kinds of conversations early on in a collaboration. Doing it later can often be a recipe for disaster. Certainly, there's much more we could discuss here, but I'm very excited to introduce to you my very special guest, 2-time Grammy Award nominee for Best Classical Vocal Solo Album for 40 at 40 in 2024 and Confessions 2022. Soprano Laura Strickling is celebrated for her work performing and promoting new music. She is co-host of Song Cycle, a podcast covering all things song, curated the New Music Shelf Soprano Anthology, and has performed recitals and presented master classes and lectures with chamber music organizations, music festivals, and universities around the world. Her, quote, flexible voice, crystalline diction, and warm presence, unquote, New York Times, make her a welcome guest soloist for a range of opera, oratorio, concert, and chamber works, from Bach to Britain and beyond. Laura, welcome to the podcast.
I am thrilled to be here. Any day getting to sit down and have a chat with you is a good day.
That's very kind. I'm very happy. You're doing like 90 gigs a week, so it always makes me happy to have a moment to sit you down and pick your brain.
I'm definitely a little twitchy right now coming down off the jump in from last week, and now I'm doing a jump in this week in Brooklyn. So I'm in the middle of chaos land. But I again, it's nice to just kind of sit down, take a breath, and remind us. I when I have these conversations with people, I always remember why I do this in the first place. So it's important.
Well, my first question to you was, what do you remember about how you were taught to collaborate in your training? Was that something that was specifically brought up in your training?
I don't think it was specifically um I don't think they were saying here is how you collaborate and you need to learn the lingo and the methods. I did benefit early on in college from a really wonderful collaborative pianist named Mana Coulter, and she was my collaborative pianist for all of my undergrad recitals and all of my undergrad performances. And she was probably, I would say, at that point, 20 years older than me, and she just kind of, in all the ways that I was dumb, she was smart and helped me and kind of walked me down the path and treated me like an equal, even though she was older than me and more experienced than me. And so I think I learned how to communicate with pianists first from her. Mona Coulter, I think she lives in South Bend, Indiana now, and I don't talk to her very often, but I do, I do think that these kind of relationships that we start early on kind of make or break how we view our collaborative partners, be they a pianist, be they a conductor, be they a composer, be they a instrumentalist. And actually, I think instrumental collaboration came to me last because I barely did any instrumental collaboration in my education, my formal education experiences. When I came back to being a singer after my 5-year hiatus after grad school, that's when I got to work with instrumentalists. And I kind of took it upon myself, like in rehearsals, like I could tell they communicated in different ways than I was used to. And I didn't want them either to think I was stupid or to think that I was arrogant. And so I kind of just made it a practice of like watching very closely, when do they stop to fix something? How do they communicate with each other? How to improve whatever it was, like what is spoken, what is unspoken. And then just, you know, I think in general, if you start from respect, you are going to get a long way. I'll take you really far.
Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like a lot of kind of indirect learning how to collaborate through relationship, and then also just learning on the job.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to imagine a curriculum that would allow you to kind of skip all of those learning on the job steps and help you start at base two instead of base one or home plate. But like I almost think that it's different every time. It's like a game of improv. You have to kind of go with the personalities and the skill sets on the ground, and yes, and in positive ways, I hope, to get to the best performance for everybody in the end. And so, you could give best practice, you could probably give a list of best practices, but ultimately it's going to be different every single time, and you're going to have to navigate that in positive ways. If you enjoy feeling like your life is in immediate peril, then this is the hotel for you.
So, as I shared in my introduction to you, you've collaborated with lots of different folks and lots of different forces. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what is different about collaborating like with a conductor of an orchestra versus collaborating with a chamber ensemble versus collaborating with a pianist? Like how you've kind of just touched on it in your last answer, but can you maybe tease that out a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's important to know your place first, right? So, one of the reasons I love doing art songs so much specifically is that it's me and a pianist, and the buck stops with us, right? The decisions we make affect us and audience experience, and, you know, push go, and, everything happens. Hopefully as you planned it, but things happen in the moment, and that's awesome. And if you trust your collaborator, then that's when the magic happens, right?
Right.
When you start adding people to that mix, especially if it's someone you've never worked with before, then there's a chaos agent, right? So say it's just adding an instrument, you can kind of pull that one person into the bubble and asking for what do they need to be comfortable. Am I being specific enough with my downbeats? Do I need to put my consonant a little earlier so they know? Do I need to kind of like literally raise my body before I breathe so you know that I'm coming in, right? Like things like there's some things that are very explicit and some things that are implicit. Then when you start, I do a lot of chamber music, so working with a group, say, that's already formed, like a piano trio, and they have their thing and I'm entering their space. And so kind of watching the group dynamics, how do they operate, what can I do to not only make my part cohesive with the whole, but like add to, don't detract. I think it's really important, at least for me, that no one ever feel like I'm the star in a chamber music setting. Like I want to be part of the group. Do not put me out in front. I want to be within because I want to feel and breathe with them. And and everybody has different opinions about things like that. It kind of can depend on the piece a little bit. Pure linear, you might move around a bit more within the space for dramatic reasons. But I really do see us as like one organic being, and it's not Laura Strickling, and it's the group, right? So like figuring out, navigating how to be the best whole, not the whole along with, right? And then you get to things like opera or oratorio, and you kind of have to jump on their train, because with opera, with oratorio, there are so many moving parts that there needs to be a conductor, there needs to be a leader, and hopefully they are trustworthy with that responsibility. In most cases they are. And so you're constantly checking in. Am I you can kind of tell when a conductor's body language is, you need to speed up, or you're falling behind, or you need to like calm down a little bit, and kind of using those visual cues to see whether everybody's harmonious. But it is actually really important that I know my music so well, and actually that goes for all cases, that when I am there, I am not just kind of internalizing other people's parts, because mine is already internalized. I'm internalizing what they're doing, so that by the time we get to the performance, I know, and there's no surprises. And that can be really hard, because one of the things that is happening more and more and more is that no one can afford rehearsal time, especially with big orchestras. So I will show up and there'll be like a morning rehearsal with the conductor to get our ornaments and tempi, and then an afternoon or evening rehearsal with the orchestra, and then the dress rehearsal the next morning, and then the concert the next night. So it can be like this very, I'm writing a lot of notes in my score so I don't forget anything, since we're on such a fast schedule. I'm marking in intelligent ways so that I still have voice left for the final performance, which is 4 performances from now, but tomorrow night, that kind of thing. And so, being judicious about when to mark and when not to mark to save, and when not to mark, so that the conductor knows what I'm going to be doing in the performance, so he doesn't get surprised, right? There's an element. I was telling a friend the other day, I feel like I'm only ever hired for first performances of works, and I know so much music, and it's like I'll be hired back by the same groups, right? But it's like, could someone please hire me to sing something I already know? Because there's nothing more fun than singing something you already know, because you just like really make the music, right? You get really excited, and like you really like putting your artistic stamp on it because you know it. And the first performance of anything is just like it can be very good, it can be excellent, but it's rarely like the best you can do, the best that is possible, because it's a big question mark, and you've probably only had one rehearsal or two, maybe, if you're lucky. So I'm like, I kind of just want to like put all of my repertoire on my website and be like, could someone please hire me to sing this stuff that I really enjoyed learning and would like to perform again? I'll sing other stuff too, but like, here, this is stuff I actually have done.
Right. No, that's totally fair, and that's, the burden you bear for being such a great collaborator to contemporary composers who wanna write for you, myself certainly included. You just, as you shared, just went into, dropped into the role of a soprano soloist for.
Rossini's Petite Messe Solennelle with the Cincinnati Symphony.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
amazing. That's amazing. So,
Mhm.
like, I mean, so much is, there's a lot of expectation of you certainly in that
Mhm.
scenario, and like what are the things that like are your go-tos that you're looking in terms of cues. I mean, you've mentioned this a little bit in terms of how the conductor's conducting, but like, is there any sort of conversation that you have with the conductor before you start in terms of like how you want to be, what you want to be looking for, what they like to, how they like to work with soloists?
Well, hopefully you get a conductor rehearsal before the orchestra rehearsal starts. Most of the time you do.
Yeah.
And that's the time when like you're singing through stuff and if a corner catches, you can kind of get on the same page about it. But I think, kind of that low hanging fruit of listening to several different recordings if it's available, so that you can see the many ways in which different soloists have handled things in the past. Then you can make your own decisions and on whatnot. But you understand the performance history, being knowledgeable about that is important. And I actually think a lot of conductors do the same. So then if you say, I've been kind of following this soprano's approach to this tempi, does that work for you? And sometimes you show up and it's like a complete surprise. Like, you think you have it all figured out as far as what the ideal tempo is, and the conductor's is 2 times faster or 2 times slower. And kind of having the facility and having practiced it in many different tempi in many different ways will serve you, because a lot of times that changes exactly where you want to take your breath. And so I'll have 3 different color charts of breaths. If it's this tempo, to do the red breaths. If it's this tempo, do the green breaths. That can serve you. And kind of preparing for every eventuality of what is possible.
Really, preparation is the number one thing that I hear you kind of hammering home, is like being able to, if collaboration is improv, as I believe it is, as you've said, it's saying yes and, right. So it is having all of those choices, be like, oh, you want to go here, great, I know how to do that, I'll make that happen, right. And that is the essence of good collaboration, or the foundation of it is preparedness.
Well, and I think you've probably been in this situation. I feel like most people have, not just in music, but have you had a colleague that isn't prepared, and they take out their anxiety and lack of preparation on everyone around them, and kind of, oh, I thought you were going to do this. That's why I messed up. And oh, like, or just like throwing fits and making it everyone else's problem. Like, I've seen it several times, right? Like it's like literally a lack of preparation becomes everyone else's problem in order to mask their feelings of insecurity. And like, so A, don't be that person, because that's not pleasant for anyone, even you. But B, like, you're not going to get hired back.
Right.
Unless you're a tenor, they can do anything.
But still, tenors don't do that.
Please don't. Please don't.
Has tons of guitars, all seem rather overpriced. Service is what you'd expect from a Russian mob-backed storefront.
For our forthcoming album, we only had 3 rehearsals.
Yeah.
We had one in August 2025, and then we had, I think, 2 days before we went in to the studio for the weekend to record. You recorded Dear God, my song cycle Dear God, and then The Wrong Kind of Fountain Enthusiast, aptly named by your amazing husband. Uh, and
That title makes me so joyful every time I hear it, because it's just so funny.
it's chef's kiss. It's fantastic. So I mean, not easy pieces, especially the new work, Wrong Kind of Fountain Enthusiast. And I was just so blown away by how you and David Fung collaborated with each other. You just dropped in so fast. You asked questions. You said what you needed. in such a kind and respectful way. You made room for each other, and the thing that I remember the most was the laughter. You both got so much done. You got a lot done in those rehearsals, which were like maybe 2 hours each, like hour and a half, 2 hours each. But you got so much accomplished, but there was so much joy in it. And so I just wanted to me, it was like that's what collaboration looks like. It was a masterclass for me just to kind of be a fly on the wall and kind of receive that. So thank you for that. And I think, it shows up in the recording, certainly. But I wondered, other than, the genius that is you and David, to what do you owe that kind of immediate synergy? Is it just, as you said, practice, just kind of doing the thing?
I think so, but also, it helped that everything we were recording was humorous. So like there was like a lot of the laughter just came from what we were doing, right? You can't be too serious when you're singing things like I was stabbed here, the drinks were fresh and food was tasty, but someone was stabbed here, so but I'd consider going back. Like, it's like there's all these like zany let's just say it set the tone, right? Everything we were performing was so much fun. And also, I think he and I had a lot of the same experiences in the past. Like we have even though we'd never met until that moment, we have a very similar kind of background. So I actually was at Tanglewood with his husband. So I knew like I was like, this is a good person because my friend would not marry someone who wasn't a good person. So I kind of walked into the room knowing I was about to meet a new best friend. And so that helped too. And then he's so like, he is such an amazing pianist. Actually, watching him work through some of the stuff informed how I wanted to approach things. And then every once in a while, I'd be like, but what if we try this instead? And that would, pull up another kind of wormhole of understanding and kind of bouncing back and forth, playing ultimately, right? This is one of the reasons I love art songs so much. And I hope more singers take on the challenge of preparing art songs, is that the buck stops with you. Suddenly there's no coach in the room and you're responsible to explore all that it can be. And we're literally two kids in the sandbox sharing shovels and, forming something like building a structure together. And because we love it so much, not only are we going to not just kind of do it pro forma, like we didn't just start together, end together. It's like, what kind of magic can we build in the middle? And because we both approach it in that way and enjoy exploring the vagaries of every corner, like it was basically just us playing in the sandbox and having fun doing it and laughing and coming up with backstories for the kids in the Dear God prayers, like made my day, like that was really fun. And in general, like one of the reasons I love recording is it's the only time I get to be perfect, because I have so many thoughts and so many ideas and so many, I perform many times in ways that I am proud of, but I very rarely perform in ways that are 100% perfect because I am human. And recording allows me to put something out in the universe that is exactly the way I want it to be from start to finish. And so we knew we were preparing for something where it would be good to have options on the spot too, right? So like if we had a very solidified interpretation and then we got into the studio and we needed to pivot, we could do that because we had gone different directions. And I will also point out that I had just fallen and torn my meniscus like 2 weeks previous.
No.
So I did like all of this on one leg, like a little flamingo. And, I don't remember being in excruciating pain through that recording session. I remember laughing. And that to me is just like it like is an immediate demonstration of like the power of what we do. You just it and the draw of it, it's like I keep choosing to do this because of those kind of moments.
That entire recording process went so smoothly, and it was so much fun, and it felt like a complete oasis to everything else that was going on and continues to go on, out in
Mhm.
the outside world. And I think so much of that was owed to how we all worked together, and Ryan Strieber, amazing engineer who
Yes.
just so great at creating space for like, oh, why don't you try that again, and just is really so loving and caring, and knows when to like give somebody a break on a section and be like, oh, we'll come back to that. I mean, just so good at kind of caring for people, right? I
Oh,
mean,
I will send anybody Ryan Strieber's direction. He's at Octavian Studios in New York, and he's got that. I think the perfect producer engineer has all of that technical knowledge that they're going to help you sound your best, which is a comfort in itself. It lets you play because you know that it's going to be safe in their hands on the post. But they also are a little bit of a psychologist. They know when you can do more and you're holding back. They know how to help you do that more without making you feel stressed that you haven't done it yet, and talk you through that process. And they know when to, like, you are so frustrated from trying to do that thing, you need to take a step back. And then, like, sneakily, like 3 hours later, we'll be like, hey, I'm not sure we got measure 5. What if we just take a crack at that? And usually that, like, one off to crack at measure 5 is exactly right. And so they have this organized brain that helps them remember all of those little corners that need to be gone back to. And because ultimately, like, he doesn't have to care if our project is amazing. Like, his skin is not in that game, right? Like,
right.
ultimately, no one is going to blame Ryan Strieber if my recording is bad. They're going to blame me. They might blame you, but they'll probably blame me. Um, um, but like he is so deeply invested in making sure that you walk away with what you want, that it's almost magical. It's like this, like, ability that I don't know how he developed it. I'm sure he did develop it. I'm sure his, like, process has developed over time, but and I have a couple other producers I've worked with who have that quality as well. And it's, when you find it, you just, like, hold on to them for dear life and, like, beg them to work with you as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing about collaboration too. It's like, more please. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had the best time working with you. Like, I'm like, anything you want me to write for you from here, I will be your court composer from here to the end of my days, Laura. Like, anything you want, I am. It's true. It's true.
More
I'm
funny
like,
songs, David. More
yeah.
funny songs. Although I need to, like, actually take these funny songs on tour and actually perform them for people now.
Yes, please.
I'm planning to do it this fall, but it's kind of that thing where it's like, this is the so I haven't mentioned it yet, but I've been doing this commissioning project, and ultimately I'm recording all these commissions. And so, like, when I look at kind of the curatorial eye within a curatorial eye at how this stuff is all going to fit on an album together, it's like, David, I need some funny songs. I need something funny. I cannot leave people so depressed. These amazing sad songs, like, we got to have some light. We got to have, so I think funny songs are the hardest thing to compose, full stop. And you do it like it's easy. So you're not getting rid of me either, buddy.
Good, good. Well, that makes me very happy.
Dear God, my grandpa says you were around when he was a little boy. How far back do you go?
So I just wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about, I mean, certainly you talked about working with somebody like Ryan. What are some things that you want to share about collaboration in those types of relationships?
So I think in the same way that approaching from a place of respect is always going to do you right. When you're working with anyone in admin or in label or in venue, it's being prompt in your responses, actually answering all the questions that are asked, providing materials that are requested in a timely manner, like bios, headshots, program notes. If you ghost people that are depending on you, they're not going to enjoy working with you, and they will respond thusly, right? Like you basically get the energy back that you put in the world. So if you want to be seen as a dependable person who people like to work with and clamor to do it again, you need to show them the respect. Like, I don't care who you are or what you have accomplished. Everyone you work with deserves your time and respect, you know, when it is required. Obviously, like it can get, I get like, you know, a billion emails a week asking for like advice and recommendation. And I just physically don't have the time to do that kind of stuff every time. But when I do have the time, I do. And when I have a commitment that I've made to someone, I follow through because again, not that it's all about getting to work again or getting to hire again, but that's a big part of it, right? Like ultimately, I like singing and I want to keep doing it. And the best way that I've found to keep doing it is to be very prepared and musically and personally show up with my best self, be a good colleague, and an effective communicator. And that serves you in all of those arenas.
I just had a really great conversation with Frank Clark, and we're going to start working together. He gave me a poem of
Yay.
his to set, and I'm
What
going
a
to set it.
lovely, light-filled human he is.
Come on, I mean,
Yeah.
just a really beautiful human
And a
being.
doctor, I think. I think he might be a surgeon.
He's a psychiatrist.
A psychiatrist? Yeah.
Yes, and he's written children's books, and he's a beautiful poet. I mean,
Yeah.
just a lovely person. But like, that's one of the things we talked about. Like, so how do you like to collaborate? What are the things that like are important to you? And I think being willing to have some of those conversations up front, right?
Mhm.
Um, with folks, especially as we're getting to know them, just so we, you know, so we know where they're coming from, so we
Well,
can
I'll tell you,
adapt.
every single time I have ignored my gut on initial communications and how they went, I have regretted it greatly. Every time. You can kind of get a sense pretty early on, and some people surprise you, but for the most part, when I have been like, this doesn't feel right, and I do it anyway, I always regret it.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Read the room.
Read the room. Read it, or you're gonna be writing 9 books on it.
That's right. That's right. It's also nice getting older and being like, no, no, this
Yeah.
isn't this isn't for me. I'm sure it works for other people. That's great for them. This is not the collaboration for me.
Well, and I think going back to what you said about kind of rejection isn't personal, especially in this part of the work, it is business, right?
Yeah.
And so there are reasons people reject you. Like I was trying to find a PR agent for my upcoming album, and like I got rejection after rejection after rejection on like the same day that I was getting like a grant, I got, I was getting like this like best of times, worst of times experience. And I'm like, but I'm doing things and I'm getting affirmation over here. And then these other people are saying, no, thank you. And it's like, and it really isn't personal, right? Like they could have a conflicting project and I wouldn't want to work with someone who would try to double dip and, not serve both clients equally because they can't in that situation, right? Like
Right.
there are a million reasons that you might get a no that aren't, it's even in the composition field, right? Like I work with composers, and actually we haven't talked a ton about composer collaboration, but I do think that's actually really important.
Oh, let's do
um,
it.
but a rejection isn't I don't like your singing and I don't want to be associated with you. It could be I don't have time, and I if I try to fit another thing in, it mean that everything I'm working on suffers, including what I'm doing for you, right? And so when I approach, I'm gonna just like segue into composers. I started this commissioning project, and the seed started in 2017. New Music Shelf asked me to curate an anthology of New American Song for soprano, and they handed me 900 submissions, and I was the curator. There was no committee, and I had to listen to all of them and decide my favorite 20 and put them in an anthology. And I learned so incredibly much from that process of listening. Not only did I learn what composers think is unique but isn't, right? Like it was like this case study of 900 test subjects of just like what is amazing until it isn't because it's too long and they needed to edit. What poet is every single person setting, and why it's not that great. I'll tell you why. It's public domain. But like, I learned so much through this project. So I fell in love with new music long before that, but it solidified my curiosity for what is possible. And I do so much recitaling that in 2019, I was like, I should, I premiered so much stuff. I would like to commission something for my upcoming recital season. But my career, like I wouldn't be a singer today if I hadn't been championed by composers when I was starting out. So I was like, who do I had my list of people to commission kept getting longer and longer, people that I really owed a debt of gratitude to. And so I thought, well, what if I just commission one thing from all of them? I can figure this out. This was November 2019. I was like, I kind of know how much I'm going to make next year as a singer, and maybe we can afford as a family to like reinvest that back into commissions instead of our family budget. We'll figure that out later. And then, of course, the pandemic happened and I made no money for the next 2 years at all. And then we're still trying to figure out how to escape the financial hole. Well, that's another day, another story, another book. But I started these relationships, or at least continued, in most cases, continued relationships, built deepened relationships with composers through this project, and then started out with 40 commissions, moved up to, I think we're like 59 or something. But what it has done is help me understand how to communicate with someone that you'd like to bring something that's never existed into life before, and how each person approaches that differently. And again, going back into our improv, like taking what they say at face value and not expecting things of them that other people have done just because. It's like every single commission represents a different relationship, a different story, and came into being in a different way. I've truly seen it all at this point. Maybe I won't, and I'll have like more big stories, going forward, but it does feel like I've kind of seen everything, that can happen. But my greatest advice is to, if you are interested in working with a composer, is to spend the time getting to know who they are and what their compositional and even like what the poetry they tend to choose, like that, everything you can know about what they do, for two reasons: because you'll know, it'll confirm or have you turn away from working with them. It'll either be like, yes, this is the vibe I want to to put out in the world, or maybe not, maybe that's not the right vibe, like maybe this isn't the right partner for me. But also, once you actually communicate with them, you need to be able to say, I would like to commission you, and here is why. Demonstrating to another artist that you have spent significant time understanding the work that they do and have done is the first way to show respect, and also will go a long ways, especially if they're not someone you already have a relationship, will go a long ways towards convincing them to work with you if you show that you are thoughtful and caring in that way. And so that's like that cracks the door open, in my opinion. That's the first thing that happens. And then after that, it's understanding, do I need a 2-minute song? Do I need a 15-minute cycle, or 20-minute cycle, a 1-hour orchestral piece? Understanding kind of the range of what those things can cost, and negotiating in good faith with the other person on the other end. And understanding that means something different for every situation. So like I'm always asked, like, how much does this cost? How much does that cost? It's a range. And it's going to depend on, I have a flow chart that I show at like master classes when I do like lectures about commissioning. And it's like, do you know this person? No. Expect to pay market value. Why you don't know them? Why do you want to commission them? They're famous. Expect to pay full market value. Like, like there's, and then like, do you know them? Yes. Okay. How well do you know them? Like, what's the relationship here? Like, have you contributed to their artistic development in a meaningful way that they might be willing to show some of that love back to you, right? Like, and are you sure? Are you just saying you did, or are you sure? Right? Are you sure shows up a lot on that flow chart. But it's like understanding the ways in which what we do is a symbiotic relationship. Composers need performers to perform their work, or it doesn't exist in the world. But performers need composers to write music because otherwise we are mute. And not that we can't, there's not other music we can't find that's already been written. But ultimately, if we want there to be a future for this art form, for classical music in general, we need people writing it. And so the other like large guiding light principle, North Star of the project has just been being part of the bright future of making sure that art song is a relevant and vibrant art form. And the way I can do that is with my curation, my programming, my relationships, my supporting of composers. And so, in all things, approaching with honesty and best intentions usually goes a really long way. And being specific, I need this by this date, or it's open ended, or and actually kind of being do you have a poem you've already picked out? Not every composer is going to resonate with that. That's a big match game, right? So I have poems that some composers have been like, yes, that one off of my list, I love that one, I respond to that, I'm going to write a song. I have composers who've been like, none of those really rock with me, could I suggest something? Absolutely, come back to me. I've only twice had someone come back with something that I was like, I can't sing that. I think you were one of them, actually. I think what
Yes, it's true.
Although yours was way tamer than the one that I was like, oh no. But like, and again, coming back to communication, it's like, well, that's not really something that I see coming out of my mouth, but there's other options, right? And we just keep going back until we come to something that works. And then saying like things like a lot of composition contracts will have an exclusivity period where I'm the only singer who gets to sing this thing I've commissioned for 5 years or whatever it is. I don't do exclusivity periods except for the premiere, because I do not want the songs I commissioned to end with me. I want them to be adopted by other singers and beloved by all. So I asked for the premiere performance, and then after that, they can sell and promote, and I will help them promote their work and the sales of their work. And then the other thing that I put in contracts, but also believe deeply and actually doesn't need to be in a commissioning contract, but should just be best practices for all musicians in the industry, is when you perform a work by a living composer, you should send them a program from the performance, because that is how they prove performances for royalty collection from ASCAP BMI. And I didn't learn that until like I was in my 30s. I didn't even know that was a thing. So I say it as much as I can. Care and feeding of composers, being a good colleague to composers, is sending them your programs to let them know you've performed their work so that they can be paid by the royalty granting bodies literally every time you perform it. And nowadays, like it's easy to find the email addresses for most living humans online. When I started out, I had no idea how to let John Musto know I was singing Dove sta amore on my graduate recital. Like he didn't have a website in 2004, right? Like so, or 2006. But my voice teacher knew him, so I literally mailed him a hard copy of my program to make sure he got it. But these are things that there's so beyond the things like I will promote your song's involvement in my project on my website. I will, it's kind of, here are the duties I will offer to you that will hopefully be part of the compensation package in the end, right? Like
Sure.
My plan is to record this. If I don't do it by January 1st, 2028, you're, like anybody else can, just let me know and I'll let you know if I do have a plan. If I don't want anything to get stuck in limbo. So I try to be reasonable. So I don't have like no one else is allowed to record this, but I have hey, like just reach out if something doesn't happen by this date, so that, because I don't want to hold you in limbo forever. That's something else from a contract. I'm also working with New Music Shelf to put out anthologies of these songs. So I put the commissioner intends to include this piece in a published anthology through New Music Shelf. The composers will have a separate agreement for royalty sharing with that body, but this is just like so that up front. I'm hoping you'll sign on the dotted line to be part of this, but it's totally opt-in. So contracts that have like things that are finite and things that are kind of like ephemeral, but like so that everyone knows what I'm trying to do and what I hope to do in addition to what I will do, right?
Dear God, it is great the way you always get the stars in the right place.
I just wanted to maybe end our time together talking about your upcoming album, because you have an album coming out in August.
I
And
do.
I'd love for you to just share a little bit about it.
It's something that my longtime collaborator, a pianist named Joy Schreier, and I've been working on curating literally since our last album release, which is Confessions in 2020. It came out in 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one came out during the pandemic, like November 2020. And so, you know, we had so much fun doing that album. And of course, it took like 5 years to get it all, you know, from start to finish. So I knew basically every album I try to do takes 5 years from start to finish. Just it always does. But so we just started like throwing ideas back and forth after Confessions was released because we were like, that was really fun. Let's do it again. And ended up with what amounts to 150 minutes of really compelling new song. When everything's written in since 2011. Most things have been written since 2018. So it's like art song now. And I was really a theme developed in Confessions that I don't think I'd set out to do, but it became a theme, which was kind of women telling their own stories, first person kind of perspectives, and I'm still interested in that because I am a woman. Like those stories that women tell are more immediately compelling to me, and so that became a driving force. The cornerstone is a song cycle by a composer named Juhi Bansal, who I met through the 4840 project. Actually, no, that's not true. She heard Confessions and reached out to me, and we've become besties. But she wrote a song cycle on landais by Afghan women, anonymous Afghan women. Landais are the traditional Pashtun poetic form that is primarily shared orally from woman to woman. And by its existence is a form of resistance because so much of their life is outside of their control. Now it's literally illegal for women to speak outside of their homes in Afghanistan. And these landais is the centuries old woman to woman transmission of art and emotion and, you know, perspective. And so Juhi, you know, when the Taliban took over again and when these laws limiting their public life were set forth, she wanted to find a way to amplify their voices. And I lived in Afghanistan from 2011 to 2014. So I didn't actually commission this cycle. It was commissioned by Songfest, but I reached out and I said, Juhi, like, I need to see this because this is something that I care about. You know, I personally know women whose voices were silenced and I want to amplify them as well. So that became the cornerstone of Legends Rebellion, and women telling their own stories and amplifying their voices. So from that cornerstone, we have Cecilia Livingston. Her two, I think, most popular songs that get sung are Penelope and Calypso, poems that explore them as humans from their own perspective, as opposed to the kind of legends that have been built around who they are. And I commissioned a linking song, a bridge song between Penelope and Calypso from the perspective of Circe. So this is the Circe brings Penelope Calypso together into a triptych, a song cycle. And so this will be the world premiere recording of Circe, and pulling it together as a cycle. And it's amazing. And then a dear friend of mine, Jody Goebel, and her librettist, who is also a dear friend of mine. There's a theme here. Caitlin Vincent. They wrote a song cycle called Nighttime in the Fourth Trimester, and it's a absolutely astounding, humorous look at postpartum depression, and it's a barn burner. I can't even, I mean, it's funny, it's sad, it's amazing. And I don't think that there are a lot of song cycles about postpartum depression. There's a lot of stuff about motherhood, but there's not a ton of stuff about postpartum depression. And then a wonderful young composer named Jens Ibsen and his poet friend Susan Bywaters wrote a take on Death and the Maiden, Schubert's Death and the Maiden, and the musical theme weaves throughout, but instead of death stalking the maiden stalks death, and whatever that means. So it's very sexy. It's very kind of turned the legend on its head. It's very cool. I love it. And then finally wrapping it up with, I was swiping through TikTok one day, as I'm wont to do more than I'd like. And I saw this spoken word poem named Jocelyn Jam reading her poem called The Original Rebellion. And it stopped me in my tracks. So I was like, I need these words to come out of my mouth. And I direct messaged her on TikTok and told her who I was and asked her if she would email me if she was interested. She was. I connected her with my good friend, Jasmine Barnes, and they became fast friends. And Jasmine, of course, was as struck by the words as I was. So Jasmine wrote a song on Jocelyn's words. And it's this album that represents so many collaborations, true collaborations, friendship, and women being rebellious in all of the ways that humans do and are. And that can be very active and passive and positive and negative. And so I'm really, really thrilled to be releasing that in August on the Sono Luminous label. And then in, I believe, May, we'll release Legends Part 2, which is Legends Restoration. And we can have another podcast about that later.
Yes, we will. Laura, I adore you. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for being not only just a tremendous artist and friend, but just a great collaborator. I'm really grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you. And I'm excited to see what we dream up next.
I know, me too. How do you talk to your students about collaboration? How might you demonstrate those skills to them in your own work as a teaching artist? What else needs to be folded into this conversation that we didn't get to today? Sound off. You can email me at wholeheartedvoicepedagogy@gmail.com, or as always, you can find me on the socials. My handle on most platforms is @Sisco Songs or @Wholehearted Voice Pedagogy. I sincerely would love to be in touch with you. And I hope you'll check out my new album, Infrastructure, the Songs of David Sisco. It highlights over 25 years of my work as an art song composer and features performances by pianist David Fong, baritone Michael Kelly, mezzo-soprano Elizabeth Mondragon, soprano Laura Strickling, and myself. Infrastructure is now available for pre-order on Apple Music and Amazon. Thanks for checking it out. And as always, more soon. Take care of you.